noma ke ebahlanganisayo ukuthi nje lokho kubizwa ngokuthi phecelezi ke amamarker akutholakele anele ukuthi ke angasho ukuthi ngempela ke ayabafaka.
And I was saying this, my lord, in the sense that, for example, when you are looking at the investigation, if, for example, we know even the fingerprints, you need to get a certain regions of it, to make a conclusive finding. But if you have an individual where the expert says, I can only get 4, but that 4 can be read into the suspect or the person that you're looking at. In the purpose of the investigation, you cannot ignore that person because you've got guidance. But it does not mean you are making a conclusive findings of the fingerprints. Same with the DNA. There are, for example, accused number 5 is completely excluded, complete in my recollection of what that report says. But it says certain things that the examiner find with regard to other accused, and that's where I was at, my lord.
Futhi ke lokhu ke uma singenza nje ke isiboneleko mayelana nawo ke ama fingerprints uma kwenziwa ke uphenyo lapho ke siyazi ukuthi ke kune number ethize yalokho kubhekwayo ke kufanele itholweke, kodwa uma kuwukuthi ke akutholakala konke lokho akusho ukuthi ke manje ke kuzofanele ke ngikushaye indiva ke lokho ngingakunaki lokho akushoyo lo akuyena obenza lolo phenyo lolo. Uma sesingabuyela khona lana ke uma singathatha yena ke umsolo wesihlanu, uma ke lo obenza lelo phenyo ke ushilo ukuthi ke akukho nje lutho ke alitholile ngaye umsolo wesihlanu, kodwa ke engasho okufanayo mayelana nabanye.
And I think it's the same position with accused number 1, my lord, that in my recollection the report did not find any, even if it's not complete markers, any with regard to accused 1. And that, my lord, it's in support of the investigation because the investigation indicates that accused 5 was outside. He was the driver of the vehicle, and I'm saying it's alleged in terms of the investigation. And accused 1 was standing outside, so he could have not left anything. It doesn't matter how small or big anything, because there would have been a contradiction. So there is a collaboration in that sense. But as I said, the markers and the issues that the two advocates had a concern about is what I wanted to go into, but it wasn't sitting well with the defense.
Kuyafana ke noma singakhuluma ngaye ke umsolo wesihlanu oqala ngexolisa ke ukuthi ke nalapho ke akukho okutholakele ukuthi ke khona ke okwasalela noma ke awakushiya ke khona lapho, lokho ke kuyahambisana ke nalo ke uphenyo esilenzile ngoba ke lasho ke uphenyo ukuthi ke umsolo oqala yena ke wayimi ngaphandle, umsolo wesihlanu wayengaphandle naye ke esemotweni ngoba uyena noma insolo zithi ke waye ngaphandle ke kuyena oshayela imoto, ngakho ke akukho awayengakushiya ke lapho. Yilokho ke bengifisa ukuthi ngikusho ke nangaphambilini, kodwa kwaba yila khona ke abameli baba nenkinga.
Yes, my lord.
Brigadier, the bottom line is that the DNA expert that came here excluded all 5 accused persons because there is a certain minimum and maximum that you must meet for you to include persons as donors of a DNA sample. So all 5 of them were excluded, and it's not up to you to interpret that evidence. He spoke, he testified at length, going through each and every single marker where there were points of commonality, differences, but the bottom line remains. He excluded all 5 accused persons before court.
My lord, that's not how I understand the investigation is done. And like I said, that's why I left this part, and I think the state advocate also, we moved away from that part, but now I'm being asked a question about it. That's not how I understand the investigation is being done. If a person, my lord, I'll make an example, make a statement to say I was robbed by this and this person, and at the end of the day, he gives you the context where he was, what was taken, whether it was male, black or white or colored, but at the end of the statement he says, I cannot identify those people. That doesn't mean a crime didn't take place, and that does not mean because he says I can't identify the perpetrators, you must now forget everything that has been mentioned above. That's not how you do investigation. There are certain pointers, and if those pointers, no matter how small they are, points to some of the accused, it becomes collaboration evidence. I'm not saying it's a fact, because we are not an expert, man, but it's a pointer. It's the same, for example, with what is contained in Mr. Ramosepele's client's confession. When he says, I was with accused 1, 3, 4, and 5, it's what he says. It's not a fact. We needed corroboration evidence to prove indeed that there was such, my lord. So it's the first part. It must be corroborated for a conclusive finding to be made at the end.
Kodwa ke akukuwena ke ukuthi ke manje umusha kanjani noma utolika kanjani ke ukuthi ke yini le ayishilo ufakazi kodwa ufakazi ke yena uma noma ngenkathi ebelana ke ushilo ke ukuthi ke akukho okwatholakala okuhlanganiswa noma okushoyo ke ukuthi abasola bobahlanu laba babe laphayana kwisigameko ngaleli yalanga ke uthi ke akusiyona ke indlela leyo uphenyo oluhamba ngayo wabesenza ke isibonelo ukuthi uma ngabe umuntu eyovula ke icala esho ukuthi ke kunomuntu obambe inkunzi uzomusho ke ukuthi umuntu omnyama umuntu omhlophe umuntu ekhaladi yini kodwa ke abe egcineni athi ngeshwa ke uma ngathola ke ithuba angeke ngikwazi ke ukuthi ke lo muntu lowo ngimkhombe noma ngimusho akusho ke ukuthi kufanele ukushaya indiva lokho akushilo ke ngaphezulu noma ukuthi ke uphenyo seliyaphelela lapho kunama marker noma ke ama pointers athile uma kuukuthi ke ama pointer athile akhomba uhlangothi oluthile noma kwabanye babasolwa ke akusho ukuthi akunganakwa lokho.
And this assertion, my lord, does not mean I'm saying the statement links them. That should not be misunderstood. I'm not saying the expert says their DNA is conclusively found. I was basically referring to what efforts or steps I took in my investigations, what guided me.
Okunye futhi ke akushilo ke ufakazi ukuthi ke uma ngabheka ke noma ubuke sona ke istatement sokonyuluka sakhe ke umsolo wesibili la ashoyo ke khona ke ukuthi wayekade enaye ke umsolo woqala owesithathu owesine kanye ke nowesihlanu asijongo ke ukuthi ke lokho kuphelele kodwa kwafanele ukuthi manje ke senze uphenyo ke phezulu kwaloko akushilo. Okunye futhi ke angisho ukuthi ke lo mbiko lowo wofakazi bekade lana ke ukuthi ke umbiko othi ke cha ngempela ke lokho bakwenza ke kodwa sengiyakusho nje ngiyachaza ukuthi yiloko akusho.
And like Advocate Munisi correctly said when he stood up on this point, it is not your opinion, Kenneth. It's the opinion of the DNA expert on this point.
My lord, I think we are on the same page and we're saying the same thing. As said, I am making this submission does not mean I'm saying the expert was wrong in saying what he said. I agree with his conclusion. I'm simply saying above, if you look above what is contained there, what it says. That's number one. But number two, I do recall, my lord, that DNA, it's a mixed DNA. The donor of the second DNA was never found, which is a female, to make a conclusive finding. That's what I seem to recall during my interaction with the expert or our interaction. But there is no dispute, and such must not be created, my lord, as if I'm standing here contradicting the expert to say he is wrong. I understand the report that is written there and I agree with it, but I'm simply saying on top he indicates certain markers that were not good enough for him to make a conclusive finding. So it's not, in essence, my lord, a complete exclusion. That's what I'm saying. It's where somebody says, I've read this, 0. I've read this, 0. There are certain markers, but unfortunately they were not enough for the expert to make a conclusive finding, my lord.
Engishoyo ukuthi lana ngisikhuluma ke into eyodwa angimile la ukuthi ngiphikisane naye ke umngodi noma ufakazi ke owasho ukuthi akukho okufaka ke abasolwa ke lana akufani nesehlakalo la khona ke umuntu ezayo ethi cha angithola ngalutho u0 angithola ngalutho lana u0 kodwa ke uyasho ukuthi yebo kukhona ke okutholakele kodwa ke akwanele ukuthi ke afinyelele ukufinyelela kwisinqumo-ke esiphelele noma ekuyisona-ke.
So there's no conflict or difference of opinions insofar as what the expert is saying, my lord, and what I'm saying. But basically, and I'm not contradicting him or disagreeing with him.
Angiphikisani naye ukuthi-ke noma ngiphikisani naye-ke noma ngisho okunye okuhlukile kuloko akushoyo-ke mina nanjengoba ngime la.
Okay. And then you also referred to the AVL report for the motor vehicle driven by Longwe Twala.
Yes, the tracker. I think it's a tracker. Yes, my lord.
The tracker.
The tracker system. Correct, my lord.
Ngikhulumile ngayo-ke i-tracker system mayelana-ke nemoto eyayishayelwa uyena-ke uLongwe Twala.
And in that context, how does it say that the relevance to there being intruders or no intruders?
Well, my lord, we know the cell phone, the missing phone, the phone that was in the same tower, including with Longwe, prior to the commission of the incident, that after Longwe with his car and his phone tower, the number that he gave, goes to clinics, that phone goes to Muleleki. So if Longwe was the shooter, you would then expect, and if this was a fabricated story of the so-called missing phone, you would have expected, and I said this, my lord, to see one of the people in particular, because we're talking about Mr. Longwe, going together with the so-called missing cell phone or the phone remaining behind. So the essence of the AVL was to show, or rather the tracking system, my lord, was to indicate that it was moving together with the cell phone and it went to the clinics, contrary to the phone that was in the tower that was alleged to have been taken, which went to a different direction. And we could not find evidence as to who was there, because the people who were in the house all went to clinics. So people who in the house are sitting at the clinics with the deceased, my lord. The phone is sitting at the last tower of Moleleki. Then the question is, who is in possession of this phone if there were no intruders, or at least one person, because the phone cannot work on its own. So that was the essence of that submission, my lord.
Kubaluleka noma kuba semqoka-ke kwaleya mbiko-ke we-AVL noma leya tracker-ke mayelana nayo imoto kaLongwe-ke nanjengoba kwakunale yinsolo-ke eyishoyo-ke uma kuwukuthi-ke kwakuyena-ke uLongwe-ke owadubula ukuthi-ke nale foni-ke uma iya ngale kuloyo hlangothi njengoba laba basendlini bona-ke baya e-clinics ekuyila icosha khona-ke neyakhe-ke uLongwe ifoni, kusho ukuthi-ke ubani-ke manje lo owayephethe lo makhalekhukhwini lo owaya kolunye uhlangothi-ke eMuleleki ngalesikhathi-ke laba ababesendlini bona baya e-clinics.
Okay. Now, let us move closer to these events now. And then we start with, we've made reference already to Exhibit BB, that is the identity kit with which you say you confronted accused number 2. You recall that?
I recall that, my lord, yes.
Ngiyakhumbula-ke ngikhuluma ngayo-ke umdwebo loya noma-ke i-identity kit engithi-ke ngabuza umsolo noma ngakhulumisana nomsolo wesibili ngayo.
I'm going to request that it be beamed so that we all can see what we are referring to. My lord, I'm waiting for my learned colleague to connect to the monitor.
So in the meantime, you keep calling that cell phone a runaway phone.
Yes, my lord. It's basically the phone that belongs to Miss Kelly Kumalo, the 072 number.
But does it actually belong to her?
Yes, it's a cell phone, my lord.
And the number was also identified by Colonel Stein and the other gentleman.
Yes. Yes, but she also identifies it on her statements that it's her number.
Oh,
and
she says
it was
that.
Yes, no, it is identified. It's identified that it's one of her cell phones that she disclosed to the police to say I have 2 cell phones, the 072 number which is alleged that was taken by the perpetrators, and then she remained with the 082 number.
So common sense or logic tells us that there must be forensic evidence before 8 o'clock going this way. There must be forensic evidence that that phone, the runaway phone, was inside the house.
There is forensic
There
evidence,
is,
my lord.
yeah.
There is forensic evidence that place it in there together with the other cell phones.
Yes.
But not only just her cell phones, with the other people who were in the house under the same location.
Okay.
After the incident, then you have these different directions, my lord.
I hear you.
uyamane ukhuluma-ke ngalo makhalekhukhwini ukuthi-ke lo makhalekhukhwini-ke owabalekade make i-runaway phone yebo-ke washo-ke yena-ke umiskeli khumalo naye-ke kwistatimende sakho uyasho ukuthi nama-cellphone namanamba amabili u-072 kanye no-082 u-072 ilona-ke emuva kwesigameko owathathwa-ke bukhona-ke nobufakazi obushoywa-ke futhi ukuthi leyo cellphone leyo ngaphambi kwesigameko yayikhona-ke lapho endlini kanye nama-cellphones abanye labo ababesendlini.
Okay, we do have Exhibit BB on the screen.
Yes.
Now, if we look at the depiction of the sketch on the left, I did ask this question before to, I think it was Sergeant Messiah. Is that photograph as well depicted with that sketch on the left with the hairstyle of dreadlocks, according to what you can see there?
No, it has a hoodie. Are you referring to
Yes,
the person
one
on the left-hand side, on my
Yes.
left? No. The person with the hoodie is on the right. With dreadlocks, and the person on the left is wearing a hoodie, my lord.
Because I'm looking, if you can be given the pointer so that I can show you the parts that I'm referring to. I'm not operating this. What the better profile.
Yes.
Yes, if we point, you
Yeah.
see on the, yes, those parts, and also on the left-hand side.
Yes.
Do you see those parts?
Yes, I do.
Yes, are those depiction of dreadlock hairstyle, or is it just the background?
My lord,
You can,
I think it will be difficult for me to say for the fact. I think I don't want to mislead. I do see that there's some blackness showing up there, but I can't say. It's more clearer here where you see there's dreadlocks. So one can say it looks like it's part of the dreadlocks or the reflection of the picture. I don't know, because I was not involved in this, my lord. That's a difficult I have.
Ubunzima enginabo-ke lana ukuthi ngangasiyona-ke ingxenye yabo khona-ke umnyama okubonakalayo-ke ukhuluma lana-ke nakulo hlangothi-ke kodwa ngeke ngisho ngesiqiniseko uma ubheka kubukeka ingathi iwona-ke kodwa ngilana-ke kulesi sithombe wona-ke ayacaca ukuthi-ke iwona-ke ama-dreadlocks.
okay, I'll revert back to Exhibit J because this is Exhibit BB. And then,
Sorry, my lord, sorry, Mr. Ramosepele, to say something because it just cropped. I just came into my mind, my lord, that and obvious. Maybe let me not disturb your line of thought. I'll come back to it later because I think I might distract where you're going. It's fine. I'll come back to it later, my lord. But I want to say something about this picture.
okay,
Khona-ke bengifuna ukusho ngalesi sithombe kodwa ngizobuyela kona-ke kamuva angifuni ukuthi-ke ngiyiphazamise-ke imibuzo yakho.
and your testimony is that on the 18th of June 2020 and at Carltonville at Sibanye, when you spoke, interrogated, interviewed accused number 2, you then confronted him with this ID kit and you told him that the person depicted or the sketch depicted on the left bears a resemblance to him.
Yes, I did say that, my lord.
Ushilo ukuthi-ke nge-18 zikaJune 2020 esibanyeke wakhuluma-ke naye umsolo wesibili umtshela-ke ukuthi-ke umuntu lona-ke odwetshiwe-ke la noma kule identikit nako khona-ke noma-ke unabo-ke ukufana naye yebo ngakusho lokho kuyena.
My lord, what I forgot to mention, perhaps let me just deal with it. This is the part I was saying I want to deal with it later. I didn't mention it in my evidence in chief, is that when I was during the profiling process of the accused, obviously the ID, the age was determined. Now, when I made this assertion that I think this person looks like him, What I was also taking into account is that his ID number, in terms of the description given by one of the witnesses, he described the person with the hoodie. He described obviously the color of the hoodie, which I will get into, as the person who's about 25 years old. Now, if you look at the age of accused number 2, and you count backwards to 2014, it takes you exactly to 25 years. And that was described by one of the witnesses. Is Mr. Makaleni. We dealt with him. Mr. Ramosepele took me through when he was identified. He made a statement, but also when he was interviewed on the statement of Warrant Officer Steenkamp. We dealt with it last week. He says this person with the hoodie is 25 years old. He also mentions the measurements. I don't recall exactly as to how he says this person, how tall he is, my lord. But he further mentions the issue, the color of the hoodie that was worn by this second intruder. In other words, the person with not the second intruder, rather the person he saw outside wearing the hoodie, because he mentioned more than two people. But what is of importance is the age, which corresponds with the accused exactly. We can count even now backwards. It will take you to 25 years in 2014 when this incident took place. But furthermore, fast-tracking now to after the 18th of June 2020, my lord, to the time when I interviewed Constable Zungu, and he subsequently submitted a statement. In his statement, he clearly indicates that at the hostel, and it's contained in his statement, accused 2 was wearing a black hoodie, which was described at the crime scene on the 24th. He says he was wearing a black hoodie. He changed to a different hoodie of a different color. But when they came back, or when you saw him, the hoodie was wearing is black in color. It's contained in his statement, my lord.
Lokho ebengifuna ukusho-ke ngaphambilini ngathi ngizobuyela kubona-ke kamuva-ke cabanga ukuthi-ke angikusho-ke khona manje ulona-ke udaba lwehudi nombala-ke owashiwo-ke kanye futhi-ke nokuthi-ke uma omunye wefakazi-ke cabanga ukuthi uyena-ke uMr Makeleni sikhulumile ngaye kwiviki elidlule esho-ke nokuthi-ke lo ambona-ke egqoke leyo hoodie iminyaka yakhe-ke yayingaba-ke u-25. Uma singabala-ke ukusuka manje sibuyele emuva-ke siya kuyena-ke u-2014 sesingathola ukuthi ngempela-ke iminyaka yakhe-ke umsola wesibili-ke yayihamba kubona-ke o-25 futhi-ke uyasho-ke noma emkala-ke ushilo, kodwa-ke angisakhumbuli ukuthi wathini ukuthi ubude bakhe kwakuwumuntu wayemude kangakanani. Sibuyele futhi kuyena-ke uConstable uZungu oshilo-ke ukuthi-ke ehostel nkathi-ke belapho-ke ukuthi-ke umsolo wesibili wayegqoke ihoodie eyayimnyama, noma eshilo-ke ukuthi sebuya-ke wayishintsha-ke, kodwa-ke uyakhuluma ngayo ihoodie leyo emnyama.
My recollection, my lord, is that also I seem to recall that the description in terms of the height given by Mr. Makaleni was about 1.8. What I'm not sure of, and I can check during the long adjournment if there is any report or is containing a statement of Colonel Mangena, because the exact measurement of how tall he is, this is now accused 2, was established by Colonel Mangena during that exercise of trying, but that I don't recall, my lord. But Mr. Makeleni's one, I do recall that he estimated him to be 1.8. So one will have to see what Colonel Mangena says in collaboration of that. But the hoodie, the age, my lord, fits in. So the essence of this submission, my lord, as I said, when I confronted with him with the similarities, I forgot to mention that I was also at that time, because I knew how old he was, that he was fitting in terms of the estimation of the age by the neighbors who alleged that he saw someone wearing the hoodie back on the day of the incident, my lord.
Okunye futhi-ke ngakusho-ke ukuthi-ke waye ubude bakhe-ke noma wayemude kangakanani-ke, kodwa mangikhumbula kahle-ke uma uMr Makeleni wayemchaza-ke omunye lona ambona-ke ukuthi-ke kwaku-1.8, kungafanele nguye emuva-ke manje ngithi uma ngabe yena-ke uKolonel Mangena wayekhala-ke ukuthi yena-ke wakala wathini-ke ubheka-ke ukuthi khona yini ukuhlangana nokhona-ke. Okunye futhi-ke ngakhohlwa-ke kuyena-ke noma kusho-ke ukuthi-ke bathini uma ngabe sebemchaza-ke abantu labo noma-ke omakhelwane.
Yes, ma'am.
Brigadier, let me put this so that we are not misunderstood.
Yes.
I read to you the contents of Exhibit J as they are. I did not take you through the description of Makaleni for the truthfulness or non-truthfulness thereof. I was simply reading the statement because I am aware, as you've already told the court, that Mr. Makaleni is deceased. So there are issues with Hearsay Evidence Act that must still apply, and the state did not apply for that evidence to be led in terms of Section 3.
As a court, please, my lord, there's a legal proposition. I mean, once you put a statement on record, you are saying, my lord, that it's not in dispute. You consciously put hearsay evidence on record. If you put hearsay evidence consciously on record, you cannot later on complain that it cannot be admitted. That's what my learned friend did. We therefore submit, my lord, that the proposition that is being put to the witness now that this is hearsay evidence is not correct, since they themselves put that on record.
My lord, that aspect is dealt with because I can tell this court.
It's what?
I can tell this court that Amanda Steenkamp, who compiled Exhibit J, it is my intention to call her during
No, fine.
our defense case. Yes.
I think you're talking at cross purposes. He's quoting a legal principle, your brother, Mandoi,
Yes.
concerning putting hearsay evidence.
It is. I'm very well aware that if I solicit hearsay evidence, it's then admissible.
Yeah,
my lord.
right. That's what he's talking about.
Yes. So we're going forward because remember my follow-up question to this Makaleni after the description given to Ms. Steenkamp. I asked you whether Makaleni was one of the persons that were in the house or was it somebody that was just simply passing in the streets?
Yes, I do recall that question being asked, my lord.
Ngiyakhumbula ke lo mbuzo ubuzwa ke ukuthi ke ingabe uMakeleni kwakuwomunye wabantu ababesendlini noma kwakuwumuntu nje owayendlulela emgwaqweni.
And the reason I was reading that statement was twofold. One was to show the description of the firearm provided by the people in the house, and secondly, to show that the people in the house themselves, to Mrs. Steenkamp, none of the people described the features, the height, the length, anything to Mrs. Steenkamp. Those were my reasons. So the description of dreadlocks, golden insert, 1.8 meter in height, came from Makaleni, who's not the person that was in the house. That was the purpose I was showing. I was reading Exhibit J.
No, it is correct, my lord, but one also must understand on what context was Makaleli called in as a witness. If you read his statement, he indicates that he was passing the Kumalo's house, and that was the scene, and he saw people who were sitting outside, which he took note of. As he was coming back, I think from the shop or from a certain walk, he saw some of these people running to an opposite direction. And then later, when he get closer to the Kumalos, that's when he was informed that these people who were running were involved in the shooting. So that's the context. That's why the investigators focus on him, because he was able to identify the alleged perpetrators outside the house before the incident took in, before they went into the house. That's how his statement was taken. So it was in that context.
All right, let's dive into the dynamics between Advocate Ramosepele and Brigadier Gininda. Where it's clear that the courtroom tension has reached new heights, Gininda is proving to be quite the opponent, and it almost seems like he's playing a game of intellectual chess with Ramosepele. So the big question is, does Ramosepele actually have questions for Gininda, or is he using the classic tactic of burying the court in a maze of words, hoping to trip up Gininda along the way? Now, some might argue that Ramosepele's lengthy, long-winded strategy is an attempt to wear Gininda down, perhaps hoping he'll slip up or contradict himself. But here's the thing. Gininda isn't just holding his own, he's actively seizing control, to the point where it feels like he's the one cross-examining Ramosepele. Think about it. When someone like Gininda, with his precise and calculated manner, starts to sense a lack of directness or purpose in the questioning, he won't hesitate to exploit it. And that's exactly what he's doing here. There's a common observation from people following the trial that Gininda's responses sometimes border on manipulative, as if he's intentionally tying Ramosepele in legal knots. It's almost as if Gininda has read Ramosepele's entire playbook and is contouring every move with precision. To go up against him, Ramosepele would need to be brief, precise, and assertive, something he's perhaps failing to do. Now, when it comes to Gininda's comments about identifying cars, here's an interesting layer of irony. He seems to imply that without a driver's license, a witness can't accurately identify vehicles. Basically saying that if you don't have that credential, you're incapable of distinguishing between an SUV and a sedan. This comes across as almost patronizing, maybe even dismissive of the witness's credibility. And to anyone watching closely, it might even feel like he's overscratching to make the witness look less credible. Is Gininda's point really about the reliability of the witness, or is he strategically undermining any account that doesn't fit his narrative? And then we have the whole question of Makalene's description of the suspect. Why would Gininda believe that Mkalene's description matches Ntanzi and not Longwe? Mkalene provided a description, but it's Gininda who seems convinced that Ntanzi fits the picture, even though Longwe with his similar height and age could also match. So why has Gininda decided it must be Ntanzi? I know that some viewers argue that Mkalene's testimony is harshly and shouldn't be treated as fact, but the real issue here is Gininda's selective interpretation. Why is he giving one description more weight over another, especially when both Longwe and Ntanzi could reasonably fit? Could it be that Gininda is working within a predefined narrative and is unwilling to explore alternative interpretations? Then there is the crucial distinguish Makaleni allegedly made between intruders running out and Longwe running out. This brings up several questions. Did Makalani really see two distinguished groups, which is Longwe and the intruders, running out separately? Or is it possible that what he saw was ambiguous and is now being molded to fit the desired narrative? And how reliable is anyone's estimate of height or age when it involves a fleeting, chaotic situation? This debate underscores a broader issue in this case. The dependence of witnesses accounts that may lack objectivity or consistency. Witnesses under stress are really perfect observers. That's human nature. Yet here, selective elements of these accounts are being treated almost as gospel, while conflicting details are pushed aside. It highlights a bias towards fitting a pre-constructed theory rather than letting the evidence speak for itself. Ultimately, Gininda's approach may leave some of us feeling frustrated, as if the actual search for truth is being lost amidst these courtroom mind games. This trial has evolved beyond merely seeking justice for Senzo Meyiwa. It has become a public spectacle of who can outmaneuver whom. And while Gininda's smooth tactics might be admired by some, others are questioning whether his strategy serves the interest of justice. Are we really closer to the truth, or are we just watching two legal minds clash without bringing us closer to the real answers? Gininda's intelligence might indeed be his greatest strength, but it could also be his undoing if it prevents the court from addressing crucial unanswered questions.